agam Hi Gaeltachta, fáilte róbhaisteach ag Mara. There's a couple of old friends, a couple of people who've had these ideas before, and I'm delighted. I'm going to be followed by Val Cummins, who's done so much in the marine in Ireland, and other folks. Delighted to have people overseas. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Quite a few people won't understand precisely what Údarás Na Gealtachta is, and I think it's important as I start off this conversation that people understand that. So the Gaeltachta is a word that refers to these areas in darker green that you're seeing on the map of Ireland, which are the Gaeltachta as one cluster, about 100,000 people in 7 counties. But as you will see from the map, most of them are on the sea, and so the marine is very important to us. The Údarás has 3 distinct missions. One is an economic mission to provide enterprise support, to provide jobs for people so that there's a reason to live in the area we call the Gaeltachta, keeping our language and our traditions alive. And so there's a cultural mission around that, around the culture that is the Irish culture, Gaelge, agus an Artangahin. And the social mission around keeping that community alive. And that's very, very important because we're going to be talking a little about sustainability. It's crucial to us. My side of Údarás Na Gealtachta is the enterprise support side. So we're focused on providing jobs for people to live in the Gaeltachta, to speak the language. And we do that with a range of supports, the kind of supports that people are familiar with in IDA and Enterprise Ireland and other state agencies. And the key to what we do is providing property, providing places for people to set up business, to work and to employ Páirc Na Gealtachta. And that then becomes central to what we're doing around Páirc Na Mara, which is the major strategic project we have around the development of the marine. Páirc Na Mara, the marine park, will be a dedicated marine business park in Kilkieran, and more about that a little bit later. So having discussed, and for some reason, here we go. Having discussed a little bit about what the Údarás is about, I suppose we need to refer to where Ireland is in the development of its marine economy. And I would argue, along with many of you, that Ireland has done a very, very poor job of developing a sustainable marine economy. And whilst it has improved over the years that people have been working in the Marine Institute and other state agencies, it still leaves a lot to be desired. And Ireland has 220 million acres, much more than the landmass of Ireland on its continental shelf area. There are opportunities, and we must be extraordinarily careful to leverage those opportunities in a way that supports this notion of sustainability. And so what we're doing around the blue economy, and there's a great misunderstanding of what the blue economy is. David Andrews once disappointedly said that he became the Minister of Fish and Ships, thinking of it as a very minor ministry when he became Minister of the Marine some time ago. But there's a lack of understanding about what the marine is, and there are challenges in developing the marine on the coast, which is a very fragile environment. It is a very, very fragile social environment in terms of the Gaeltachta and other very rural communities. And it is an area where it's difficult to get companies to set up shop and to develop employment. So there are a range of national Irish strategies and European strategies around trying to do something sensible around the marine. And we are very, very focused on trying to give life and results along those strategies. Within the Gaeltachta, we have a wide range of just fabulous activities happening. We have people who are growing coral as a substrate for human bone grafting. You know, coral, we all know from the Barrier Reef, it's a wonderful thing. It's an important part of the marine ecosystem. But, you know, the opportunities to take things like marine invertebrates, to grow them and to use them in ways which are just incredibly exciting. Ireland, we all know, is a center of marine biomed technology. Why not link up biomed technology with marine technology? We have companies like Air Composites who are developing a range of composite fiber devices in marine renewable energies, both in turbine blades and in tidal turbine blades. So wind turbine blades and tidal turbine blades. We have some great companies who are developing new approaches, new species, multi-trophic aquaculture. Aquaculture is a low carbon form of producing protein, which is badly needed in our growing global population. But we need to do things very smartly, very cleverly, and very sustainably in aquaculture. And then around seaweed, we have a very long-standing tradition of using seaweed in the Gaeltachta, but we don't have a long-standing tradition of doing really innovative things with seaweed. And that's what we're looking at doing. There's a whole range of nutraceuticals, pharmaceuticals, and indeed greenhouse gas mitigation by utilizing seaweed not only for carbon entrapment, but also for things like feeding to cattle to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. And so all of this is built into the current strategy for Údarás Na Gealtachta, which will end this year, and we're developing a new one in which marine is absolutely central to everything that we're doing. I think the issue of inwarnacht sustainability is something that we are absolutely mandated to do. But we need to think about sustainability not in the way that it has become to some extent hijacked as a notion of conserving the natural environment. From our point of view, the natural environment is an absolutely critical part of our Gaeltachta. It provides us with a range of competitive strengths. It provides us with a place that people want to visit. It provides us with a marine environment from which we can develop a wide range of profitable, employable marine activities. So we have to look after it. But we have to remember that we have a community in the Gaeltachta who deserve the right to live where they come from, to speak their language, to maintain their culture. And we can only do that by providing economic development, jobs that make sense. And all of this has to be developed in an equitable way. And we are completely convinced, and we believe that there is any amount of proof out there to show just how well that can be done, where we deliver and leverage on the key skills, the traditional skills of Muintir na Gaeltacht, Muintir na Chósta, na daoine atá freastal ar farraige, atá obair ar farraige na haon lá sa tachtain le na glúin. So generations of fishermen, seaweed cutters, and use those skills along with the skills that their children want to learn in university, whether it's engineering, marine biology, biomedical engineering. All of these skills that can be put to work and to use to develop sustainable, environmentally friendly jobs. And so we're working across a wide range of activities. We're working with the local fishermen in native oyster restoration. We're working with the Marine Institute and others around natural resource development. We are very active in everything we do in Údarás in trying to increase the greenness of our buildings, of our business estates. We're trying to improve our response to climate change. We're trying to make sure that the activities that we take going forward respond in that area. And to improve our skills around that area, we are involved in a range of European projects in many sectors, but in particular in the marine. We have access to sea and 4KT, SW Grow, and now Innoval. And we're working very, very hard to try and improve our skill base and to improve the skill base of the community around us, which will then in turn leave us the opportunity to really work on the development of Páirc Na Mara as both a local and a national strategic resource. There's a cooperative of oyster and scallop fishermen that we're working with, and we're developing projects in how to maintain and how to grow those resources, because we want there to be a situation where these guys who are going out fishing and they're doing a bit of lobster, inshore lobster fishing, a little bit of shrimp fishing, a little bit of shellfish, extensive aquaculture and fishing, and that becomes a really sustainable way of life, done in a way which makes sense, which provides a really good sustainable path to their economic development. One of our projects, SW Grow, Clean in Grief, is looking after that project and is on the line here, is on our one of our organizers for today. We're working very hard to understand more about what the available seaweed resource is. How can it be developed sustainably? What are the opportunities around seaweed, engaging with harvesters, engaging with seaweed growers, engaging with the state agencies and looking at the opportunities for businesses to develop out of that. And we have wonderful small businesses around the coast, on our islands, who are developing these superb products and businesses, and these need to be supported, but it needs to be done in a way which really supports that the environment and which maintains the really delicate balances that we're all familiar with. And then as we go out, we're very actively involved in renewable energy. We are actively putting renewable energy collectors, photovoltaic cells on our buildings. We're building in a range of smart facilities into our new buildings. We're currently upgrading buildings. We're very interested to see the movement in licensing for offshore wind, and Fuinneamh Scairde on the Scairde Rocks on the mouth of Kilkieran has made some progress out there. And if we can do these things wisely and smartly, we impact climate change, we provide jobs locally in the Gaeltachta, and we add to the sustainability of our globe. And we have companies who are really focused on providing opportunities and providing technologies, not only to harness the energy in Ireland, but working with international companies in order to develop their potentials. In order to do this, it's going to be interesting to hear what Sam Belknap has to say about how they've been working in this area in Maine later on. But in order to do this, we have to think about how it is we can develop a process of marine spatial planning in this country, which is functional, which allows rational development, which allows companies to understand what they can do and what they can't do in real time. The worst possible solution is what happened with Apple and Athenry. By the time they got through a process over years and years and years and got their planning permission, they were gone. It's the worst possible outcome if that happens on the coast too often. And so we have to think about how it is, and we have to input, and we are inputting in the Údarás, how it is that marine spatial planning and progressive permitting can work in this country. My colleague Morniena did a master's recently and asked the people around the coast of Connemara about the kind of activities that they would like to see in their coastal bays and inlets. And you can see seabed mining was considered to be a no-no, but pretty much every other activity was considered very strongly to be supportable and to be supported. Interestingly, the second least liked sector was cruise liners. But people see the opportunities in their environments. They want to work with that environment and with the opportunities to provide jobs for themselves, but they want to do it in a rational and a sustainable way. And so to Páirc Na Mara, Inishin Tom, now is the time for it. We believe this very, very, very fundamental. There is an opportunity for us to work with the companies who have expressed real interest in Kilkieran, and Micheál mentioned that Kilkieran will be featuring on the TG program this evening. I recommend you all to keep an eye on it. We have expressions of interest to create 200 jobs directly on Páirc Na Mara, which is, you will see photomontaged into the background of this picture. That's what we think it will look like in the environment. That will lead to 400 indirect jobs around the service industries, around the shops, around the transporters. And on top of the state investment, which will be required and will be very significant, will bring between 30 and 50 million at least in private sector development. And into an area where there's 34% unemployment, one of the employment black spots in the country. But we need to do this in a way which is completely sustainable with the environment, with the local community, and with the local economy. And that is something that we are under tremendous pressure from Muintir Kilkieran, Muintir Carnam, Muintir Irasanach to provide, and they want to see us doing it. So what does Páirc Na Mara look like? As Micheál mentioned, we have been working on Páirc Na Mara for quite some time. It's 18 acres of land which neighbours the sea. It neighbours a special area of conservation, or shallow bays and inlets, and so it presents special challenges that we're in the process of trying to overcome. The planning application has been lodged. We have been asked for further information by the planning authority, and so I'm not going to get into too much detail about this because it is a process underway. But It is a wide range of facilities to promote the development of jobs and businesses in the area. At the front of the site, on the top left-hand side of your screen, is the main road. We're proposing a Marine Innovation and Development Centre, which will be the focus of the development of the cluster of innovative companies and a wide range of companies around that. We mentioned energy. I'll draw your attention to the middle at the bottom of the screen, the Energy Centre. We anticipate pretty much all of the buildings, all of the south-facing roofs in Páirc Na Mara to be full of photovoltaic cells. We will be collecting any waste heat, any wastewater heat in the Energy Centre. We'll be providing energy from the centre as the most efficient way of providing energy around the site, and to the extent that it's possible to do it, it will be self-sufficient in energy. In the middle of the site, we have a number of recirculating aquaculture systems and a large seaweed added value facility. We want to maintain the value that we can extract from the seaweed that's harvested or grown on the coast, providing the jobs locally, so that the product that goes out is the highest value possible and is doing the most innovative, most profitable things possible, so that all of the jobs derived from processing that seaweed will be done locally. And then very importantly, all of the work that goes on this site will be, the effluent will be being collected in a very high technology water treatment plant, which will mean that the water coming out of here will be, to all intents and purposes, cleaner than the water coming in. It'll be a combination of the fresh water that'll be coming down from the lakes on the uplands, and the salt water that we're taking from the sea. We will be looking at a range of facilities, aquaponic sites for polishing water, so that we're using any nutrients in the water, we're using them locally to grow plant and other material on Páirc Na Mara, so that the project is just as environmentally friendly and producing as close to zero environmental impact as it's possible to make it. There is no such thing as zero, obviously, but as close as we can get there. So a wide range of activities, a wide range of industry types, a wide range of job types, which is very important. And we're doing this as in collaboration. Coibrú le muintir na háite, coibrú le na hagrisí státe tá timpeall arin. Micheál mentioned the Agrisí Stát, the state agencies. We're working very closely with the Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, with the National University of Ireland in Galway. We're in close contact with the universities of New England, who have special interest in technology innovation and in marine innovation. And we see all sorts of opportunities. We're working in joint training programs, the Galway Roscommon Education and Training Board, and we're broadening that out with Carlow IT involved in some of these programs, Letterkenny IT. We have already started providing skills to the local fishermen in navigation, in boat handling, in seaweed aquaculture, in hatchery production. So we're trying to bring people already up to speed with the kinds of activities, the kinds of opportunities that are available for them. And as a key part of that, we're trying to engage with you. Micheál talked about you as our cluster, you as our expert group, you as our users of the environment. And so we're talking to people about the range of jobs, the range of activities, the positive sides of what happens out there. So those of you that follow Páirc Na Mara on Facebook will see the various profiles that are going up on a regular basis, and people have been coming back to us and saying, wow, we did not understand the range of activities, the range of things that our people are doing. On the left, Joan Malloy here, who's a solo offshore sailor of international renown. People that are doing all sorts of things that we don't think about being in the marine. Micheál McGonigal on the right, who is the resource scientist for Aramara, who is really knowledgeable about how the seaweed resource is looking around Connemara Mayo and areas that Aramara are working in, and people who are really, really focused on doing this in a way that is smart, that is environmentally sustainable, that is environmentally friendly, and that provides jobs for our people on the ground, and that keeps our young folks at home, that keeps them in high quality jobs, in jobs that are if not future-proofed, at least future-ready. And so our drive in Údarás Na Gealtachta is to support the development of this sector, to do something that's focused on the Gaeltacht, muinte na Gaeltachta, muinte tá a géirí Gaeilge labhairt, agus tradition, agus an nós na tágain a chuinneáil bio. But to do that in the context of doing something which is really important for our island and for the marine resources on there. And if we can make this work the way we believe we can, we think that this is just the beginning of a really big development in marine businesses of all types on this island. And so with that, Chahirlig, gur míle mágat a socht vor am agus de veigéisteach lam, dagi stoig gur published me a rohaled rief. I believe very passionately and very strongly in the opportunity that this presents us. I want my children to be able to stay in my area getting high quality jobs. I want them to be able to enjoy the best of the west of Ireland, the best of the Gaeltacht, the best of what we do. And I want it to be done in a way which maintains the quality of what you're looking at here. Cún Chilchiran, host their fad and Heron, just it's rud go wilmud a braher chun go machmad an ar géad luanella ar gasur hain a chuinali gemacht a bheith Oberlin in our tier hain ar achwin hain. Gur míle mágaí. I wish you all great success today. I hope you enjoy the input of the speakers. I hope that you find some of what was said today, if not by me, by others, stimulating. Ganari Liv, gur míle mágaí.
Oliver Mark, gur míle mágat. Just on a couple of logistic things, first of all, folks, just to say that we're recording the sessions, the talks, and hopefully the Q&A that will follow in a minute. So I hope that's okay with you. And secondly, just on practicalities, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, first of all, number of participants, 110, that's fantastic. And secondly, Q&A. So there's two ways of interacting normally in these sessions. We're not using the chat so much today, we want to use the Q&A. So if you have a question, open up that Q&A tab and send in a question, and we will then use that as a basis for, let's say, leading the Q&A as part of the discussion. And if you like a question that's already on that list, you can just say that you like it. So there is one question that has come in already, and it's something that Mark was talking about earlier on. So we'll start off with that one. It's come in from Cardiff, from some fella called Páirc, Casey, Gormaga Páirc, agus sé ceiste ha Mark na Seo, Rudúche Couple that Ireland has done a poor job in developing our sustainable marine economy. It reminds me, Mark, of something that we heard last week from a man from Michael O'Boyle, actually from Mayo County Council, who was talking at the Mayo Marine Ideas Day and another good seminar, a little bit like this. And he was saying Ireland has great resources, but actually the development has lagged behind the resources. And he was himself trying to promote the idea of a marine cluster for Galway and Mayo. So just picking up on what you said a few minutes ago, and also on Michael O'Boyle's, why do you think that the development has lagged the potential, or that we're doing a poor job so far? What are the two main factors, Mark, that you might put that down to?
Okay, so measurably, Ireland generates about 2% GDP from the marine, and that's by taking a very broad definition of the marine. A lot of that comes from marine transport. And so we depend, about 95% of the goods and services bought and sold in Ireland are transported on the marine, and are transported by ship. And so if you take out that piece of the economy, by comparison to all of our European neighbours, pretty much all of our European neighbours who have a coastline, we're a fraction of what they do in the marine. Our underdevelopment relates to a number of issues. The west coast of Ireland is a very wild and exposed place. And so it's very difficult to get out there in small boats, in old technology. We've got to be smart about that. And that reduced the tradition of large marine activity. We were never a naval country. We were always subject to, well, for many, many years, subject to rule by the British, who had a huge navy. And if you look at the big marine economies, they're very often built around the development of naval technology. So there's real state support for the development of marine technology. And then if you look at the difficulty of accessing our coastline from a business perspective, the Harnessing Ocean Wealth strategy talks about a progressive and a progressive permitting environment. We don't have a progressive permitting environment in Ireland. It is extraordinarily difficult for companies to access the marine environment, or to find out if they can access the marine environment. So there has to be rules, there has to be a very careful approach to the protection of the marine environment, but there has to be a functional way that gets us to decide whether or not a company can or cannot go forward and under what conditions. And for that reason, companies are very slow to engage with the permitting process in Ireland. And as I mentioned in my talk, the Apple debacle in Athenry scared a lot of people off, because they saw how difficult it is and how many loops through which you have to go in order to get away from or to get permission, if there are even a small number of people who are against something. So there has to be a balance found. And all of those things come together to us starting at a very low base. So if you talk about when we joined the European Union, that fisheries got dumbed down. The reality of life is, at that time, our fisheries business was actually quite small. And so we didn't have an economic number that was easy to argue with. So we started from a very low base. The good news is that we've grown from 1.6%, as you see, as you saw in the 1.1% in about 2010, 2011, when we started to measure this, and we're growing up to 2%. Our target is to get to 2.4%, which is still very low. So there's a range of things that we have to do. And I think, Micheál, that the most important step that we can take now, to think very carefully about nuolchas, dinioga, cólachtaí nua, cólachtaí nuolcha, innovation, young people innovating into the marine space, so that we jump ahead of our neighbors in Europe, and that we take ideas and turn them into really high value ideas, that we don't go for the mass production route, we don't go for high pollution route, we don't go for high risk, we go for really high value, we add really high quality jobs, we do really smart things, and we develop competitive advantage for our country. I hope that answers the question to some extent.
Okay, good meal market. Tá cúpla ceisteileadh teachta staff, so I'll just call out some of the questions. One of them is from Gillian Mills from Ocean Focus, and thanks Gillian for joining us today. Gillian for many years has been working with a paper called Inshore Ireland, which now has gone online from Galway, and we hope that you all subscribe to it. So it's again another form of marine cluster that's already there. And the question from Gillian is, will the slides and the statistics, the presentations be available? So yes, they will, Gillian. We'll be sending out an email to all the participants afterwards, so thank you very much. Included in that, first of all, will be this short survey, SurveyMonkey, and also details there of where to access the presentations. But we certainly would be keen that that would be part of this community of practice, sharing the slides, sharing the information. Next question is from Henry Lyons from County Kerry. Hi Henry, how are you? And Henry has two questions actually. One of them is, what's the timescale for Páirc Na Mara? And I think that would be worthwhile, maybe Mark giving us a little bit of an update on that, and that you would talk about that first of all. And as well as that, will Údarás provide turnkey units in Páirc Na Mara? So you might talk about timescale, planning permission, permits, and so on, and then what's available by way of turnkey units. Mark.
Okay, so hi Henry. Yeah, the timescale for Páirc Na Mara is that we are, as I said earlier on, in the middle of the planning application process. We're in a request for further information process at the moment. That will take a little while to put together. And we would hope that we would have by the middle of next year planning permission, and then we will start developing the park as soon as possible. That is all subject to the planning process and what state agencies and individuals think about our plan. We believe that what we've put together is extremely well thought out. We believe that it is done in a very environmentally friendly and a sustainable way. So hopefully, our fingers crossed, we can get at it. But as soon as we get planning permission, we will get machines digging and putting buildings and facilities in place. There's quite a lot of infrastructure required, both from freshwater, saltwater, water treatment plants, etc. But it's a big project, and it will take at least 18 months from the time we start building before we can see developments on site. So 2.5 years from now, with the help of God, Henry. The second question was, will we provide turnkey units? So the answer to that is yes. It is intended that Údarás will provide what we would call advanced manufacturing plant standard plants on the site. Some of the companies will build their own buildings. All of that subject, of course, to the planning permission and to the environmental constraints. We will provide certain buildings, and then it will be up to companies to provide their own internal specialist workings. But the intention is that every building will have access to a high quality seawater supply, a high quality freshwater supply, and to the water treatment facility, which will be done on an individual basis. So if there's somebody who's doing something that needs some pre-water treatment before it comes into the group water treatment, they'll be forced to do that, to make sure that what we do is to the highest possible environmental standard.
Okay, good evening, Margaret. One of them is from Margaret Ray. I'll just call out that question, and afterwards then from Claire Scanlon. Thanks very much, Claire. Claire's question will come to it later is, what other communities did Údarás look at or study, or are you engaging with around the world as you think about and plan for Páirc Na Mara? We might come back to that, Mark, but the first one is, I suppose, a bit more a policy question. Margaret is quoting the fact that the EU Commission, R&D, has just handed over to the commissioners a study on healthy ocean seas, ocean coastal waters, and there's a lot of recommendations there. One of them is that we should have an EU agency, what's called an EU hydrosphere agency, so EU Maritime and Hydrosphere. What are your thoughts on that, Mark? Do we need that? What would Údarás think about it, and how could we connect up with such an agency if it were to be developed?
In Údarás, we take a very holistic view to the marine and to the marine activities of our communities. We would absolutely support bringing together agencies to think holistically about how it is we can develop sensible marine business and sensible marine businesses that have a positive impact on the environment and on the community. And I think that Údarás has a very special role, a very unusual role in Ireland and perhaps in European countries, in that we have this social, economic and cultural connection to make to a community of Gaelgóirí, Páirc Na Gealtachta, who are really under stress, under pressure to maintain the community, to maintain the language and culture in a world which is full of English, of screens, which we're on at the moment, and thank God for them in these COVID days. So we really have to find ways of working very, very, very smartly with the environment. The sea and the oceans of the globe are hugely important in driving our climate. They are having a huge impact on our day-to-day life. They're having a huge impact on how climate translates into weather and how that translates into its impacts on us. We need to feed the mouths on the planet. We need to do it in a smart way. We need to do it very carefully. We're having horrible impacts on wildlife with plastics in the ocean, with pollution. There are opportunities, and Údarás is very, very, very conscious. Try and play its part in that, and to do it in a way which makes sense for our community, for the Gaeltachta, for the hydrosphere, as Margaret refers to it. And if we can be a positive input into that, we definitely will be. I see it as being incredibly important.